So this is where your dry fire comes into play, big time. Do this in your house, do this in your yard. Always make sure your gun's unloaded. Come on, follow the 4 safety rules of gun handling. Garment clearing, establishing grip, sight picture, and revert, and just non-stop. You can't dry fire too much. You cannot dry fire too much. You can't practice too much. If you're going to carry and you're going to be a responsible carrier, you need to have the responsibility to practice and practice safely. Actually, much of your practice should be dry fire practice. Probably 75 to 85% of all the practicing that you do should be dry fire practicing. If you're going to be a concealed carrier, your practice should include accessing. And garment clearing is a major factor in that. The way I was taught to clear garments for weapon access is to, in this case, I carry in the 4 o'clock position here, 4 or 5 o'clock position. So I was initially taught grabbing garment from the bottom of the garment here, picking up on it, and then gaining access to the weapon. The problem with that is the weapon is here, I'm drawing here, I'm grabbing fabric here, so therefore the peak of the clothing I'm raising is here and not over the weapon. Part of the problems this creates is that when I do this, it's not uncommon to end up with a bunch of fabric caught up in the firearm. So while training dry firing, I found that for me, and for everybody it's going to be a little different, depends on where you carry, but for me, the best way to clear this garment without problems is to touch the weapon, feel weapon, grab fabric, pull. Now you can see the peak of the clothing clearing is over the weapon, which is where I want it to be in the first place. I can't very effectively reach all the way over here and grab the bottom of the fabric. I can, however, touch gun. I can touch gun. Touch gun, grab fabric. Touch gun, grab fabric. It's a great way to clear this. Again, it's different. Everybody's situation is different. What you carry, how you carry, the clothing you're wearing. Are you wearing a jacket, a trench coat, what? You know, so everything's going to be different. Grab fabric, clear. And we've got nice clear access to the firearm. Even single side, same side. I got good access, good weapon. After all the dry fire practice you're doing, before you start using a loaded firearm to access and engage target with live ammunition, I seriously recommend you do a tremendous amount of dry fire practice with that weapon in the condition it would be in if it was loaded, wearing the garments and the clothing you would normally wear, carrying it in the place it would normally carry it, concealed in the way you would normally have it concealed. It is only through doing that that you can really gain the experience to safely start doing it live fire. So if you're firing a Glock per se, the Glock of course should be empty. You should have a safe area. Never point the muzzle in any direction of anything you don't want to destroy. I don't care if it's a loaded weapon or not. Even if it's unloaded, you pay attention to these rules. So, weapon would be empty and it would be racked, so the hammer and the firing mechanism would be in the condition that it's in. So then when you're doing your dry fire practicing, when you hear that click, you know that you fired or discharged that weapon. So when you're doing your dry fire, if you go click, you know that if you had ammunition in that gun at that time, you just caused some injury to yourself or at least destroyed some of your property. You don't need to be doing any of that. So, before you ever consider to go live fire with draw and shooting, dry fire, dry fire, dry fire, dry fire, a lot. The next step after that, of course, this is a lot of practice leading up to this, is where you should do this dry fire, but start accessing and shooting under pressure. Okay, by under pressure is all you gotta have is a timer. The timer that goes beep, Too late, you didn't do it. You should be able to access from concealed and get a round off on target in 2 seconds. Count them. 1, 2. 2. You can go out and buy a shot timer. They're kind of a little pricey, $125 to $250 and higher. There are apps nowadays for shot timers that will work in dry firing. You can be sensitive enough that it's hearing the click. So essentially you set the shot timer up, the shot timer goes beep, you access, engage, pop off a round, and then you're looking at the time and seeing how much time it took you to do that on your shot timer. It's a great, great, great way of practicing. This is great practice. Time practice puts you under pressure, but you can't do time practice until you're really familiar with your firearm, how to handle it safely, not to shoot yourself. When you start accessing and drawing and trying to shoot, that's when all kinds of bad things can happen. Remember, don't shoot yourself. Threw that one. But I got it in 1.87. So I threw that shot, I missed my intended target. I did it in 1.87, which means it's good for my training. I'm pushing myself to that limit. I obviously didn't have proper sight picture before then, but I'm clearing my garment just fine. I'm not having any garment issues here. That's what we're training for anyway. There we go. Okay, you'll notice every time I'm firing, I'm sinking, right? I'm dropping my weight. I have a phrase. Take your time, but do it quickly. Ooh, perfect. 1.99. Look at this. Look at this. See this? Look. The thumb gets jammed up in there. That's a good time, isn't it? Good time on the OK Corral. It happens, man. It happens. By dry firing and practice a lot, you start to discover what kind of happens. It's good. Train smart, be practical. Practical Hapkido.